In emergency medicine, trust your training, verify every decision, and always defend the patient, because one mistake can cost a life.
It's 4 a.m. The ER is overflowing. You discharge a patient with a simple complaint, and a week later, you get the dreaded summons. The patient didn't make it.
That's our absolute worst nightmare. We train for the massive, bloody traumas, but it's the quiet, subtle cases that slip right through the cracks. 10 deadly ER mistakes, 10 lifelines to fix them. Let's rewire how we think and save lives.
Mistake number 1, dismissing dizziness. Picture this. A 60-year-old man stumbles into triage. The room is spinning, he's actively vomiting, and he just wants a dark room and some meclizine. What's your gut reaction?
Honestly, on a busy shift, I'm thinking benign peripheral vertigo. I want to give him some IV fluids, antiemetics, and get him discharged to free up the bed.
And that right there is the trap. The fatal consequence? A massive posterior circulation stroke perfectly mimics benign vertigo. If you send that patient home without looking deeper, their brain dies.
It's terrifying because they look exactly like every other dizzy patient. So how do we tell the difference when we have no time?
Here is your gold standard correction. Prioritize the HINTS exam. Head impulse, nystagmus, test of skew. It takes exactly 60 seconds at the bedside, but it can actually be more accurate than an early MRI for catching these stealth strokes. Never dismiss dizziness. Test it.
Mistake number 2, anchoring on chest pain. Let me paint a picture. A 55-year-old guy comes in sweating, clutching his chest. He says it feels like an elephant is sitting on him. Your brain immediately screams heart attack.
Right, we'd get an EKG within 10 minutes, draw troponins, give him aspirin, and prep the cath lab. That's the standard protocol.
And that is the exact anchoring trap that kills. What if his EKG is just slightly abnormal but not definitive? What if the pain actually started tearing into his back? The fatal consequence here is that an aortic dissection can rupture completely without warning. If you blindly anchor on a heart attack and give that patient blood thinners, you've just signed their death warrant.
That's a terrifying overlap in symptoms. It's so easy to get tunnel vision when the ER is moving at warp speed. How do we catch it before it's too late?
Here is your gold standard correction. Apply the ADDRS protocol. That is the Aortic Dissection Detection Risk Score. Before you fully commit to a heart attack diagnosis, force yourself to systematically check for high-risk conditions, high-risk pain features, and high-risk exam findings like a pulse deficit. It breaks the anchor, changes your perspective, and saves the patient.
Mistake number 3, the viral illusion. Imagine an 80-year-old woman brought in from a nursing home. She's just not quite herself today, mildly confused and a bit lethargic. You check her vitals. Her temperature is completely normal at 98.2 degrees.
Honestly, no fever usually brings my stress level right down. I'd suspect a mild viral bug, maybe a simple urinary tract infection, or just her dementia acting up. I'd probably order some basic labs and keep her comfortable.
And that assumption is the exact trap. The fatal consequence? Afebrile sepsis rapidly destroys organs. In older or vulnerable patients, their immune systems are often too exhausted to even mount a fever response. While she looks calm on the outside, a hidden infection is shutting down her body.
That is incredibly deceptive. If the thermometer is basically lying to us, how do we catch the metabolic crisis before her blood pressure bottoms out?
Here is your gold standard correction. Screen lactate for altered mentation. Do not wait for a fever to validate your suspicion. If a patient has unexplained confusion, get a serum lactate drawn immediately. It is your canary in the coal mine. Treat an elevated lactate like a major trauma. Push fluids, start antibiotics, and don't let the viral illusion fool you. Mistake number 4, zebra neglect. Here's the scenario. A 45-year-old patient comes in with excruciating lower back pain. It's their 3rd visit to the ER this week. They say the pain is getting worse, but their basic neurological exam is completely normal. What's the plan?
Back pain is our bread and butter. If there's no obvious trauma or weakness, I'm thinking musculoskeletal strain. I'd probably optimize their pain meds, maybe give a muscle relaxer, and tell them to follow up with their primary care doctor.
And that is a life-altering trap. In med school, we are taught that when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. But zebra neglect destroys lives. The fatal consequence? That simple back pain is actually a hidden spinal epidural abscess. If you dismiss them, that infection expands, compresses the spinal cord, and they wake up permanently paralyzed.
That is a devastating outcome, but we see dozens of routine back pain patients every single shift. How do we spot the one hidden abscess without ordering expensive scans on everyone?
Here is your gold standard correction. You must have a low threshold to order an MRI for repeat back pain. If a patient returns to the ER because the pain is escalating despite standard treatment, do not just refill their ibuprofen. A bounce back visit is a massive red flag. Skip the basic x-ray, get the MRI, and save their spine.
Mistake number 5, under-triaging vulnerability. Imagine a chaotic Monday afternoon. An 85-year-old woman is brought in by her daughter. Her complaint? Just generalized weakness and a mild stomachache. Her vitals are borderline, but technically stable. The triage nurse assigns her an ESI level 3, and she is sent to the waiting room. That happens dozens of times a shift. ESI 3 is our catch-all for patients who need labs and a CT scan but aren't actively crashing. If the board is full, she might sit out there for 4 to 6 hours. And that is a fatal waiting game. The consequence here is that high-risk patients die waiting. In the elderly, weakness is often the only sign of a massive heart attack, mesenteric ischemia, or an internal bleed. Their bodies simply cannot compensate. If they sit in the waiting room unmonitored, they will quietly crash. It's a massive blind spot. Triage is completely overwhelmed, and these patients don't look critically ill at first glance. How do we keep them from falling through the cracks? Here is your gold standard correction. Implement age-adjusted ESI protocols. We must actively up-triage vulnerable populations. If a patient is elderly, frail, or immunocompromised, you cannot rely on standard triage algorithms. You artificially bump their priority. Don't just trust their vitals, anticipate their vulnerability.
Mistake number 6, high alert dosing errors. Picture a crashing patient in the trauma bay. You need to intubate, fast. You yell out an order for a standard dose of a sedative. But in the absolute chaos of blaring alarms, a stressed nurse misplaces a single decimal point on the draw-up.
That could be a 10-fold overdose. In a code situation, everyone is moving at light speed. A misunderstood verbal order or a tiny math error happens in a fraction of a second.
And it is a completely fatal trap. The consequence? Wrong doses cause irreversible harm. You could make the absolute perfect diagnosis, but a simple decimal error with a high alert medication, like insulin, blood thinners, or paralytics, will kill your patient instantly.
Once that syringe is pushed, you can't take it back. How do we stop this when we literally only have seconds to save a life?
Here is your gold standard correction. Mandate multidisciplinary double checks. There must be a hard stop. Before any high alert medication is pushed, the doctor and the nurse must briefly pause, lock eyes, and verbally verify the exact drug, the exact dose, and the volume together. 2 seconds of verification prevents an uncorrectable tragedy.
Mistake number 7, premature closure.
Imagine a 40-year-old patient comes in with a severe headache. They have a known history of migraines and the pain feels exactly like their usual episodes. You give them a standard migraine cocktail and within an hour, their pain improves.
That's a highly satisfying case. The patient is feeling better, the diagnosis fits their history perfectly, and we can safely discharge them to free up the bed.
And that feeling of satisfaction is the trap. The fatal consequence, halting the search too early masks fatalities. Just because the symptoms fit a convenient label doesn't mean it's the right one. What if that headache was actually a sentinel bleed for a brain aneurysm? By stopping your investigation at migraine, you might be sending them home to suffer a catastrophic hemorrhage.
That is chilling. It is human nature to stop looking once we find an answer that makes sense. How do we force our brains to keep digging when the ER is so busy?
Here is your gold standard correction. You must constantly ask yourself, what else could it be? Before you finalize any discharge, force a cognitive pause. Make yourself list 2 other deadly conditions that could mimic the presentation, and actively prove to yourself why it isn't them. Never let a convenient answer close the case too early.
Mistake number 8, the boarding blind spot. The hospital is at full capacity. You have an elderly patient admitted, but there are no beds upstairs. So they are parked on a stretcher in a loud, chaotic hallway for 12 hours. They look fine when you walk past them to grab a coffee.
That is the reality of almost every shift. We are forced to practice hallway medicine. If a boarder isn't actively complaining, they tend to drop off our radar because we are busy resuscitating the active emergencies in the main bays.
And that out-of-sight, out-of-mind mentality is a lethal trap. The fatal consequence? Unmonitored hallway patients crash silently. While they are tucked away in the corridor, their oxygen could drop, or they could slip into a fatal arrhythmia. With the noise of the ER, no one hears them struggling. By the time someone notices, it's a full code blue.
It is a massive logistical nightmare. We can't build new rooms out of thin air, and nurses can't be in two places at once. How do we keep these hallway patients safe?
Here is your gold standard correction. Mandate continuous telemetry for boarders. You cannot rely on periodic vital sign checks for patients isolated in a hallway. If they are boarding, they must be hooked up to a portable, centralized monitor. That digital alarm at the nursing station is their absolute only lifeline.
Mistake number 9, dropping the baton. It's 7 a.m. You've been running for 12 hours straight. You quickly pass off a complex patient to the incoming day shift. You mention their stable vitals, but forget to verbally flag that their hemoglobin has been slowly, quietly dropping.
The morning sign-out is always a blur. We're exhausted, and we just want to give the highlights so we can finally go sleep. We assume the incoming doctor will just read the electronic chart to fill in the gaps.
And that assumption is a fatal trap. The consequence? Shift change data loss blinds physicians. The new doctor assumes the patient is perfectly fine. By the time they finally dig into the chart hours later, the patient is in hemorrhagic shock. You didn't lose the patient to a medical mystery, you lost them to a broken game of telephone.
That is terrifying because it's completely preventable. How do we safely pass the baton when our brains are totally fried at the end of a shift?
Here is your gold standard correction. Enforce structured S-bar handoffs. Situation, background, assessment, recommendation. Never just wing a sign-out. You must use the rigid S-bar framework for every single patient. It takes the burden off your exhausted memory and guarantees the next doctor is never flying blind.
Mistake number 10, decision fatigue. It is hour 11 of a brutal 12-hour night shift. You've made hundreds of critical split-second decisions since you clocked in. A young guy comes in with what looks like a minor ankle sprain. You just want to wrap it, print the discharge papers, and finally go home.
I know that exact feeling. By that point, your brain is absolute mush. You stop looking for complex answers because you physically don't have the energy left to process them. You're just trying to survive until sign-out.
And that is the final deadly trap. The fatal consequence? Exhaustion completely obliterates your clinical safety checks. That simple ankle sprain might actually have a compromised pulse that you skipped over because you were running on fumes. Decision fatigue makes brilliant doctors make amateur, fatal mistakes.
It feels impossible to avoid. We can't just stop seeing patients when we get tired. How do we protect them from our own exhausted brains?
Here is your gold standard correction. Enforce strategic cognitive pauses. When you hit that wall of exhaustion, you must force a hard reset. Step away for 60 seconds, drink some water, force yourself to use rigid checklists instead of relying on your drained memory.
10 deadly traps, 10 lifelines. It all comes down to breaking these dangerous cognitive habits.
Exactly. Which brings us to the ultimate golden rule of the ER. Trust your training, systematically verify your thinking, and always, always defend the patient.
In emergency medicine, trust your training, verify every decision, and always defend the patient, because one mistake can cost a life.